Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the October 8th Litchfield Budget Committee meeting. I'll call the meeting to order and we'll get started here with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just for point of reference, for public awareness, we have one member that will not be joining us tonight, Mr. Hodgkins, and we also, I believe, Ms. Douglas will be joining us via WebEx, although I don't see her connected yet. I do expect her to join tonight. Ms. Harrison, I see you connected. Thank you very much, as well as Vicki. Nice to see you here as well, and we'll get started here on the budgets momentarily. Before doing so, next up on the agenda is public input. I don't see anybody from the public either on the WebEx, so I'll let Mr. Brunel confirm.
I concur.
Thank you, sir. So with that, we'll close public input and move into review, additions, changes to the agenda. Anybody have any additions or changes to tonight's agenda? No, hearing none. We're moving right along into correspondence. So I do have a summary over the past week of correspondence, just to kind of run through the list. I'm sure Ms. Forty will keep me honest here. October 2nd, we received zoning and planning board notices from Ms. Forty. On this 2nd, also, we received the MS4 reports from Town Administrator Brown. On October 6th, we received edits and amendments to the September 24th minutes, which we're going to go ahead and review next on the agenda tonight. October 6th, there were questions in preparation for tonight that were submitted. Also on October 8th, there was a remote participation email that was circulated. I just want to make sure that everyone feels comfortable to, be connected via WebEx and to ensure that every voice will be heard. And so I did encourage committee members, if that's more comfortable for you, to please do so. Right? You don't have to be here in person. So just, anytime, that's fine. Also on October 8th, today, we had our draft minutes circulated by Ms. Flynn. Thank you, Michelle. October 8th, school district reports and enrollment report and the business administrator report was submitted. Hopefully everyone received that earlier today. And then some questions arose amongst a couple of committee members on the accuracy of the enrollment numbers that were shared. And we'll get into that, I'm sure, at some point later tonight. Did I miss anything?
The planning board's response from the chair of the planning board.
Yes, thank you. And we also received a response to a question that I proposed at last budget committee's meeting, which is, getting the planning board's opinion on a $3,000 reduction to a budget item, just as a question to throw it out there. Obviously, they were not fans of that motion, that idea. So to be continued when we get into voting.
And then something that you mentioned, that I had sent an email about the zoning and planning board notices. I think I sent that to you, and then it got to Troy. It was after we had reviewed the planning and zoning board budgets, and there were, some increases in costs to print in like the local newspapers and stuff like that. I was really, I went back in the RSAs, and I think that there might be some circumstances where in lieu of publication in a paper that they could be posted on the municipality's website. That's not for every type, but that's what that was about. I don't know if that went to everybody.
Okay, so, thank you.
But I'm always looking for some way, if there's a way that we can save it or be more streamlined, let's do it. As long as it's legal.
Anybody else have any correspondence to add? No? Okay. Moving into the minutes of September 24th. I know last week, we deferred them to tonight. I know there were a couple of edits that were recommended to those minutes, of which Michelle did implement or change. Were there any other changes to the minutes of September 24th? I will entertain a motion if not.
So moved.
I have a motion by Mr. Sun.
Second
by Ms. Forty. Discussion? We'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Taylor?
Aye.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Mr. Hayes?
Aye.
I am an aye. Ms. Forty?
aye.
Aye. Ms. Harrison?
Aye.
Aye. Ms. Douglas? Aye. I see a yes. You're on mute, but we'll take it.
What am I voting on? I was just able to connect.
Okay. You just voted on the minutes. from September 24th?
Oh, I'm good with those.
Okay.
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0-0. Okay, for the October 1st minutes, I have not reviewed them yet, so okay to defer them to next meeting? All right. Moving next into the agenda, which is reports and town business, review of accounts. First up, I believe, is Parks and Rec, unless you want to change the order this evening, because I do not see anybody from Parks and Rec on.
Well, Vicky is here, so I don't mind if we defer to her first.
Please.
Here I am. I also have the board chair, Donna Ferguson, with me.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
Pop in here on video. Okay, so I guess the question you can start with is, do you want to catch up on what's happening at the library during the pandemic, or do you want to dive into the budget?
I think let's focus on the budget tonight, right? And dive into the budget and understand kind of what the asks are for next year.
Okay. So I'm hoping that you've got all the documents that I sent to Troy.
Are those
So
the
there was,
documents loaded on Google?
So in the library budget, you'll see under the library, we have a budget, a hyperlink to a budget summary, a budget highlight, and budget detail.
Yes.
And you put your mouse over those, and so it's broken out into 3 categories, Vicky. So if you're going to refer to a document, refer to it as the budget summary, highlight, or detail.
Okay.
They're separate PDF documents.
So just looking at the first one, the budget summary, you can see that we are requesting $297,347. And if we go to the budget highlights, I have listed all the increases and decreases of $100 and more. So if we look at payroll, wages will go up, reflecting the merit increases from this year and then merit increases for next year. We do have one staff member who will be taking insurance, so that's $29,974. She's been getting insurance this year through the graciousness of the Board of Selectmen, who cover our unanticipated costs, but now we know it remains a cost, so it will be in our budget. And then $546 extra in Social Security and Medicare that cover the wage increases. We have a decrease of $2,300 from the health insurance buyout, mainly because we have the staff member that's now taking insurance. So we are entering year 2 of our phase-in plan. So it adds an additional 25% of the total, which will reach in the 2022 budget. For other operating expenses, everything is pretty minor. A slight increase in our Koha software. That's what runs the integrated library system for checkouts and online catalog and all those goodies. We just ended a 7-year contract, so it's gone up a little bit. A bit of an increase under equipment contracts with our copy maintenance agreement. This is our year to have the septic tank cleaned, so that's $275. Our overdrive downloadables and Mango languages also went up a little bit, so that's $119. And we have a $127 increase under equipment purchases for a replacement computer. We do one of those a year. Heating oil is going down $635 under the new contract. And water usage is also going down $115, mostly because the rate increase that was expected for this year didn't happen. So hopefully it won't happen next year either. I haven't read anything about it, but I think we're good. So those are the main things. If you look at the last page of the budget detail, it kind of shows the summaries of increases kind of by category. So obviously the driver is the insurance being moved out of the selectmen's budget and into ours. So that's a 13.9% increase. And then overall operating expenses are going up 0.37%. Any questions?
Yeah, question I have, Vicki. On the
This is Tina
207.
Vicky. I just had a question about your year-to-date spending. I know with COVID and the shutdown,
Hold up.
I assume that you've continued to pay salaries and wages, but do you expect to be on target for spending for the end of the year, or?
In many categories we do.
Okay.
There probably will be money that, we haven't really discussed it with the selectmen yet, nor have I had the chance to discuss it with my trustees because we don't meet until this coming Monday. But there are potentials to pull a few things out of the 2021 budget and pay for them this year. So like that replacement computer. There's also some things, I don't know how optimistic you are about this pandemic, but I'm kind of thinking things are not going to be back to normal before June. So there'll be some conferences that, won't happen, some mileage that won't happen, but I can't really pledge that because I don't have trustee approval yet.
Okay. Mr. Hayes.
All right, yes, question, Vicki, on the $275 septic tank cleanout. In view of the
Yes.
fact that the library hasn't had as much usage this year, and chances are next year will be similar, is it possible to eliminate that line of $275, deferring that to 2022?
I'd say that sounds reasonable.
And second part of that question, when they do the clean out, when they take a look at the septic tank, do they say, well, you could probably go 3 years instead of 2 years in a normal year?
Yeah, I've never had that stated to me, but that's certainly something I could question the next time they're here.
Thank you, Vicki.
Sure.
Any other questions?
I have a question about the insurance piece, and this might be more for Mr. Leary or Mr. Brown, because Vicki alluded to the fact that the health insurance piece was covered in the Board of Selectmen insurance piece. But when I look at 2020 and 2021 for Board of Selectmen, that insurance line looks the same. So I'm just trying to figure out where that money is for this year.
So it was you put it under Board of Selectmen expense under 2020, right? And there was an overage on
Two
one of the
separate
insurance
events that
lines.
happened
Yeah.
for both years.
So what we're doing, there's a memorandum of understanding between the library trustees and the Board of Selectmen. Because this issue came up well over 5 years ago, where the library trustees, they had a small budget. They came to the selectmen and asked if the selectmen would place an article in the warrant to create an expendable trust fund to cover health and dental benefits, unanticipated health and dental benefits. At this time, the selectmen felt that instead of creating an expendable trust fund, they would, if a situation occurred where the library employees were they experienced an unanticipated cost, the Board of Selectmen would cover that cost. So this year, we're honoring that agreement, and we just charge my line in the selectmen's budget. And you'll see there's a large overexpend right now. I think that we're predicting that we're going to probably overexpend that health insurance line by $26,000.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Mr. Tetler?
Vicki, in regards to the mileage and tolls and seminars, I realize that this is going back to 2019, but because it's still getting pulled forward into 2021, what was the reason for the drastic increase in terms of those two particular line items?
In 2019, we had an employee resign, and so the position was open for a bid, so they weren't attending conferences and such. And then in 2020, I believe we added in for our, which we haven't been having, our town department head meetings and the teen librarians, I should say, group that meets once in a while as well. So it usually fluctuates, and it's usually tied to the loss of an employee who's unable to attend things.
Okay. As far as seminars, you had mentioned earlier that there's a possibility that some of the seminars won't occur. Is there the seminars that you typically have folks attend? Are those usually in the winter time and it's unlikely and we could potentially cut back on that for this year?
Yes, that is happening this year also. But the seminar, yeah, they're pretty much spread out through the whole year. So for the 2021 budget that I was talking about, needing to speak with the trustees about on Monday has to do with that. So, we won't be able to do any of the spring meetings, co-op meetings and the seminars and conferences. Yes.
Okay. Any other questions for the library? No? Vicky, anything else to add?
No, I think that's it.
Okay, well, I think that concludes tonight in the budget review. Thank you very much for joining. We appreciate the
bet.
thorough detail as always.
Thank you, Vicky.
Okay, thank you.
Have a good night. Thanks.
Two.
All right, I'll turn it back over to Mr. Brown.
Okay. I don't see anyone from Recreation still. Is that correct? Okay. So why don't we just go ahead? I know John Burnell is also available, but we'll go through the rec department budget. John, you're gonna stay on throughout the meeting, or were you planning on dropping off?
No, I'm here. You can go.
Okay. All right. So we'll do Parks and Rec. I'll do my best to go through it. And that is account 4520. You there? So under Parks and Recreation, the first line that we have is our custodian. Pretty much level funded. We budget 5 hours a week. And when, the custodian will stop by the building and just make sure the 2 bathrooms are clean, make sure to kind of do a security check. We've had him catch a lot of things from running faucets, stuck toilets. So it's good to have someone in that building once a day. And restock the bathrooms, make sure the toilet paper and hand soap and stuff's there. Clerical Support is a new item this year. They're looking for assistance with taking their meeting minutes. So they're looking at 20 to 24 meetings. Their meetings are roughly about an hour. So they've planned for about $1,080 in cost to find someone that would do those meeting minutes for them. I know that they've, in the past, there was a time when one of the members used to take the minutes, and then they've been utilizing a volunteer. And at this point in time, I understand that that volunteer is looking to receive some compensation for their work. So that's a new cost for this year, 2021. Electricity, looking like we're predicting that we're going to be holding that level, $6,800. The gas, budgeting $4,704, and just doing our best on looking at past consumption. So we're estimating about 3,200 gallons. The price right now, as I've stated previously and throughout the other budget, is last year's price $1.47. And still waiting for the school to secure the fixed cost for 2021. I'm sure that will be coming any day now. Water charges down slightly, and just really taking a look at the last 2 years. what our actual costs were. And like Vicky had mentioned, I'm not really anticipating any increase in water rates in 2021. So it's our best guess based on actual usage in the prior 2 years. Building repair and maintenance. This is one of those items where the approach that we took, because very difficult to know what the repairs and maintenance costs will be. So we took a 3-year average, and that's how we arrived at the $5,114, which actually ended up being a $386 decrease. The trash container service, there's a 3% increase in our contract. This is a contract that we have at the solid waste facility. So that's already a set amount, and that would be up $96. Chemical toilets, that's one of your largest increases right now. That this is all based on the fact, 2 reasons. One, when we had our chemical toilets from a vendor, and we were grandfathered under an old price. I think we're paying $60 a month, which is unheard of. But when COVID hit, we had not knowing, we had our chemical toilets removed, and we recently deployed them back at our rec facilities, and the company that we were using has changed, and obviously the rates have changed. But also, in addition to the rates changing, we're planning on cleaning these toilets. Actually, I'm sorry. This is not including cleaning twice a week. This price is based on the new rates and cleaning once per week.
Who does the cleaning? The company?
What's that?
United, I think, right?
United.
The company is coming in to do
Yeah.
the
So it
cleaning.
was Dave Septic. They got bought out by United, and they revised their rates. I have a feeling that really is $151 is probably the market rate.
Well,
Public.
all I
yeah.
can say is that stinks, right? I don't know what else to say.
I'm sure between now and the new year, I'll probably talk to the rec commission about see if we can get a few quotes. But I have a feeling that is the market rate.
I would think $150 is probably pretty reasonable.
Yeah, per month.
That
That's a
doesn't-
monthly cost, right?
They're
So
pumping them
40,
so once a week. They're
35
pumping them,
bucks a
they're
week.
cleaning them, and refilling.
Doesn't
toilet paper.
sound outrageous to me.
Doesn't sound. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So public notices and ads, reduction here of $100. I think we were just looking at the cost for previous years. So we've budgeted $150. General supplies up $100, budgeting $1,000. Equipment repair and maintenance. So this is your, repairing the well pumps, our snow blower, the gates, locks, the HVAC system, security system monitoring. This is going back and really looking at what the cost was. You can see we've come up with a reduction of $526. So we've budgeted $1,000 this year. Field maintenance. This is actually out to bid right now. This could remain about the same. It could go down a little bit, or it could go up. The line that would be adjusted is the second line: mowing, fertilizing, seeding, irrigation, startup, and blowout. That's the contract that is out for RFP right now. And I think next Tuesday, this Friday, I believe the bids are due, and Tuesday the rec commission will be discussing them at their meeting.
So there's a chance then by our next meeting next week, that
Should have
Thursday.
next Thursday, we should have a better number here.
Should have a better number. Yeah.
Okay.
And it could be up or down.
Let's hope down. Okay.
Facility improvements, playground equipment. Obviously I think what happened, they really need the rec commission to explain this, but there was a big push to put new playground equipment down in the rec facility. And I think some of you probably have seen that equipment go in, saw some of the nice comments on Facebook. So I think they want to continue to, add to that, maintain it, but not at the level that in 2020 they funded it at. And the next one's equipment purchase. Where are we here? So $320. Looks like it's they're just looking to purchase the tennis nets. Mileage, they're just keeping that line. There really hasn't been any usage there for any of the volunteers, commissioners traveling for training or what have you. So they're just keeping that line open, budgeting $1. And program expenses, budgeting $1,800, and hopefully you see some of the things that they're looking at trying to do in 2021. The senior barbecue, the Easter egg hunt, Christmas in Litchfield. And this year, I know it was canceled. The Conservation Commission used to sponsor the fishing derby. They had to cancel that this year due to COVID, but they really would like to get that back. And then they've indicated that if they can do some concerts, they're going to give a shot at that as well. That brings you to a bottom line of $97,537, an overall increase of $1,613.
Questions? Mr. Taylor?
In regards to the chemical toilet rental, why at Roy Memorial do we end up doing 12 months versus the other properties going 8 months, especially when pretty much the rec department is housing basketball, which can use inside of Town Hall for restrooms?
Well, we've just, I think it's evolved over the years. They used, the season goes late there. Because you have the playground there, you have basketball courts. People can actually go if you have some snow melt in February. There are people using the basketball courts. They've in the past, they don't have it anymore, but they had a winter carnival. And we just find it also it is used by people that are exercising on the bike path, and it's actually utilized by citizens as they're out there using the bike path and jogging or walking. And so
I guess
there's a
using that
demand.
argument, why wouldn't you then do Sawmill as well with the tennis courts being there that people could potentially do, or obviously
The tennis
right
courts,
along
the
bike
tennis
path?
courts, they're closed in those months, but the basketball courts are open if they're melted. And like if you don't have, there's always activity at Roy Memorial Park, depending on weather. So not so much just planned activities, but the fact that it's a park, and playground equipment's there. People can go down, use that playground equipment year round. So I think that's why it's there. It's a good question.
Because then I could also say that at GMS you can go use the playground equipment and there's no chemical toilet there. So
yeah, but it has been. I know there was a time when I received phone calls and the service was a little bit wasn't that great, and I was receiving complaints from citizens that it wasn't clean, and it's used. Yeah.
the other question that I had was around field maintenance. Is there any possibility of getting any clawback based on the contract that is now ending that's causing the request for bid based on what ended up at Roy Memorial in terms of poor quality?
Yeah, that would be a discussion I don't think I could have here publicly, but as of right now, we got two issues. You have we're trying to restore those playing fields and working with that contractor. And second, the contract expired this year.
Yep.
So we've got it out to RFP for a 1-year contract with the ability to extend for 3 years.
So let me ask it in a different way that you could be able to answer. The contracts that we typically have, do we have some sort of clawback clause in there based on poor services rendered?
We do. It would, but it would be more probably geared towards the termination of the service.
Okay.
Yeah.
question.
Okay.
Mr. Brown, question around the clerical support, and I know that's a new line item for this year. 24 meetings at an hour a meeting, that's about $45 per hour. That seems a bit high for taking minutes in a meeting. I was just curious if there was something that was.
Well, I think what happens here is, that was something that the rec commission provided. But in reality, what really happens, Michelle's on board here listening. She's an expert at this. The meetings themselves most likely last for an hour, and anyone that's taking the minutes are going to have to watch the entire meeting. And even when you're watching the meeting, you're trying to take your notes, and there are times that you have to, kind of go back a little bit, listen to it again. So rule of thumb is that when you're doing these meeting minutes, you got to watch the meeting itself, and then you plan for every hour.
It's probably 2 to 3 hours.
It's about an hour and a half extra to type the minutes. I don't know. Michelle's on board, but she's really fast.
Sorry, go ahead.
If I could just interject, I will say, well, with budget committee, you're getting your money's worth, I gotta tell you. But typically.
Come on, we don't meet during the summer.
The summer was my bad time, but the winter's where it gets good. Typically it's an hour for every half an hour when you transcribe, because you have to sometimes you have to reword something. You have to understand what the people are saying to you and interpret it correctly. And it's a skill. It's a skill that's learned over time. And unfortunately, it's a dying art, but there are some of us that are really good at it.
And the recreation, so this is a lower amount than you'll see in some of our other boards. But the Recreation Commission, obviously not as technical as Budget Committee and Board of Selectmen and Zoning Board of Adjustment.
Yeah, I noticed it was a lower amount than some of those other ones, and I guess the question was more around the hour piece, but having the explanation as the time actually spent behind it helps.
So as a follow-up question to Mr. Sun, does it make sense for that particular commission to meet twice a month? It seems they meet quite often for,
Yeah,
a group like that compared to other committees.
They wouldn't be able to. I think it's important. They do cancel every now and then. They will cancel, but just due to the fact that they're having so much interaction with the athletic associations here in town and other groups that are planning different events like Christmas and Litchfield and river access, a lot of this stuff coordinated with conservation. They actually do have to meet twice a month just to make sure the communication is flowing with all the groups and boards and committees. They don't meet that, they don't have to meet for a 3-hour meeting. I think they conduct their business in an hour, but they do need to meet.
Let me turn it over to those connected through the WebEx. Ms. Harrison or Ms. Douglas, any questions? Shaking your heads, no? Okay. Ms. Forty?
Well, I guess just in general, Mr. Brown, have you had any contact with the Rec Commission about their budget? Because I would assume some of this you wouldn't know.
So the contact that I've had is we've shared the Google Doc. They've filled in some of the information, and some of the information. I usually handle utilities. I handle the toilets, those types of things. As far as programming costs, like in the clerical, they've put that information in.
Okay. So just when looking at the last list of expenditures, there were some things that I had noticed as of 10/1, certain lines that hadn't been touched at all. And so it's hard to know, there might be things pending that haven't, posted yet, or.
So the hardest thing, and that, you're going to hear this probably next week from a lot of your bigger departments. And just keep in mind that the end of March or very early in April, the Board of Selectmen issued a spending freeze for all non-essential expenditures. So the Rec Commission, they were shut down. They literally shut down. they didn't function. So there is obviously, if you took a look at the 2020 budget year to date expenditure, there's just very little activity. We just deployed the chemical toilets just maybe a month and a half ago, because things just started to pick up.
Any other questions on Parks and Rec?
Just a comment in regards to the facility improvement, the capital outlay projected at $3,500 in 2021. To me, that's a non-essential expense to try to add more playground equipment in view of what's going on.
Right.
Could that be deferred until, make that line $1 and then defer that until 2022?
It's a question that the rec commission would have to answer. And I think, like we reached out to the planning board, I can reach out to them. And one of the things too that I'm working with departments and boards and committees on is actually trying to look at, for example, all the accounts that have been frozen. Is there a way that we can maybe put $1 here? And if there's playground equipment that they can purchase now, get it delivered, store it somewhere, if they were looking for something specific. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, like for example, that was one thing I had noticed, is that in that line, there's 5,000 still there as of 10/1, and then they're asking that they would need another 3,500. It sort of is, are there plans?
I think that's a valid point.
Is that spoken for
and they
or
may not
not?
be thinking.
Yeah.
I'll reach out to them and
Okay.
And I think
I believe part of that money last year was used for mulch this fall. So whether it may actually have a plan for it. So that would be something that would be good to talk to them about, because we do run into problems at Dara with the markings on the play structures ending up way higher than the mulch level. And so there was a pretty expensive outlay for mulch last year or at some point. So, and it came in that order of magnitude. So I guess the question would be, given that we're approaching fall, is there plans to put that in?
Noted. Anything else? All right, let's move into information technology. Does that work?
Evening, folks.
Hello, Mr. Brunel.
I
Okay.
am. Yeah, I'm going to ask John Burnell, our IT director, to present this budget.
Just for the record, I did beg Troy to do it, but I'll do it.
It's attached to a cord.
Starting
So.
starting out
4150.
with the account 341, which is our data, which is our telephone and internet services. The major portion, the biggest increase is related to our consumption around data services throughout the whole town. This line represents all the services that we give to all facilities. So it's up $11,556. Yeah, $11,556. Again, the largest increases are month-over-month usage based out of consolidated. And additionally, we did move over from the police department budget the data circuits or data services that are supporting the existing radio system for 6 months in my budget, because we plan on shutting those circuits down once the new system goes online. Moving to 342, which is software support. This account basically accounts for most of the services that are either they're contract based or usage based. It includes our Google services, which provides services we're using today for email and so on. It provides our web hosting for our various social sites and websites and so on, and then some of our security software that helps protect the town business, and then other business services within the town. And that is up $3,320 for $27,275. Again, those are based on contracts and run rate. For account 630, which is equipment maintenance, this is the line that I use to pay for our hardware and software maintenances for some of our larger systems. It also contains budget for break fix items that we encounter over the year. It is down $3,400, and it's currently at $36,320. Moving on to equipment purchases. This is the line we use to replace our infrastructure. Over the year, we have quite a few life cycle programs in place to maintain our equipment. The biggest increase in here is the two new line requests, or two requests in there, which is our replacement of 4 Chromebooks. We use Chromebooks throughout the town for accessing different services and different departments using on the go. And then also replacing an ID printer that's used by the police department and fire department to make their IDs, and that are required by law in some cases, but also act as our access badges and so on. And that's replacing a device that's actually failed this year. In this line, we're continuing our replacement of computers. Again, we do 5 computers every year to replace our fleet of 50 or so computers that we have in the town assets. It also includes the lease payments for our copy printers that are located in the police and town hall. And then equipment leases, line 741, that represents the usage payments for the copier, same copier and same printers that are in the town hall and police department. So the budget is up $16,696 for a total of $147,248. And as I said, most of the increases are based on run rates and so on. I'll just go back to the data line for a second. Last year at this time, when we talked about the data line, one of the challenges we had, we were transitioning from all consolidated services and upgrading services for the fire department. This is now the run rate estimate. We actually overran this line by a lot this year because we grossly underestimated how much it was going to cost and maintain based on what we use from usage. So this is representing the last 10 months of usage. So, and I'll entertain any questions anybody has.
So questions that I have, and then I'll turn it over to others, right? You know, I know every year we take a hard look at this budget, and for some of us, it seems pretty Greek with all the level of detail. So hopefully some committee members will have new opinions and fresh ideas on this one. But one of the things I noticed, John, is, you know, under domain and under website hosting, you know, if I look back a couple of years, it was $350, and now we're at $1,150 for domain. We were at, I think, $750 for website hosting, and now we're at $1,200. I mean, so can you talk a little bit about the cost increases for those two, domain and website hosting?
Yeah, for the domain services, the biggest increase was the U.S. government. So we own 2 domains that have a .gov extension, which is Litchfield NH, which we own today, which is our primary. Plus, we have our older one, which is Litchfield-NH. They both get used by people. It's hard to get people to change. The U.S. government raised their fees from, I think it was $75 to $400 per domain. That's $800 right there. The rest of the domains, you know, they're, you know, $18, $20. It just depends, right? But that's the largest increase in domain services. With regards to web hosting, that represents the platforms that we use. Today, the town has a platform, the police department has a platform, and you can think of this, they have a site, right? So the town has a site, the police department has a site, the fire department has a site, the rec commission has a site, and where they develop their own content and what they want to do to the public. And that, you know, that's price is roughly about $300 per site. It varies. So we have one or two smaller sites that fall in to like 125, 150. So that's where those are, and those are services we buy from a company called WordPress. Sorry.
Thank you. And another question, if I may, on the Chromebooks, right? I know once we get into the school budget, we'll talk a lot about Chromebooks, given they're kind of scattered throughout that entire budget. But I also know that those Chromebooks are purchased for somewhere in the ballpark of $250, or at least they were pre-COVID, right? I know some of the pricing and kind of the supplies have jacked up the prices a little bit. How confident are you that the $450 is an accurate price here?
That for the Chromebooks that we're looking at, that was the price when I budgeted them. The reality of it is, for that money, if I can get 4, I'll be happy. If I can get 3, I'll be happy. If I get 2, I'll be happy. I have 3 that are primary in flight that I use all the time. The 4th one is a replacement of a failed one. So yeah, I'm happy with the price. I'll make it happen, make it work one way or the other.
And I guess as a follow-up and maybe more of a statement than a question, but I'm assuming the Chromebooks that you're talking about that are being used across the town and some of those roles have a little bit higher need on them than what a student may need in a school. Hence, you're buying a higher end Chromebook than what we might put in the hands of kids.
Right. Yeah, correct. Most of them will need a little bit more space. You probably have in school a little bit more memory. They are, like I said, they're used by multiple departments. Sometimes we have one assigned to the fire department, one assigned to that room you're in right now. For committees that don't have computer assets, they can pull it out, log into their town account, and get to all their documents. That's the concept behind it.
I did have one question as well, Mr. Brunel, and I know we leverage, as a town and the work that we do, the Google platform for a lot of our shared services. Can you help me understand the office licenses and the need? It looks like those are specific to the police department.
Yeah, so we have, there are a few activities that occur that we can't use the cloud services. Some of it's investigation paperwork that goes back and forth from the state. It's very formatted specific and we can't change it. So we end up having to use Word to manipulate them. So we try to limit it as much as possible. I'm very tough with giving up those licenses because they are expensive. Sometimes we cycle, so we'll put them on a computer for a while, and then if that role changes, we move the license around. But it's limited, like I said. I think it's a little bit more than 10, but typically we try to stick within the 10 positions.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Taylor.
Got 2 questions, Mr. Brunel. First one, I might as well continue and feel like I'm piling on the rec commission. But when I take a look at, hosting litchfieldrec.com, to be honest, all of the youth sports organizations have their own website for their own registration and things of that nature. Is there a reason why the, somewhat static posting of just information couldn't be moved to the town website to take that particular site down and have some savings and also not have the administrative overhead on it?
That's a really good point.
I think that'd be a question to ask the rec commission. They asked for it. They have 2 people dedicated to it, and their idea was to make sure it was always up to date. Being their volunteer committee, I'm sure it hasn't been as up to date as they'd like it to be.
Okay.
But I can certainly ask.
Okay. Question number 2, I guarantee this isn't about the rec commission. When I take a look at the Verizon wireless line item, is it possible because we have Comcast to move it over to the Comcast cell phone, which tends to be cheaper and it's still leveraging the same Verizon wireless towers, or is that not eligible to a local government?
So we're on a Verizon government plan that is required for the police and fire for their transmissions, and we're riding on that same contract. I've looked at the rates. To be honest, it doesn't save us a whole lot of money for when we go to Comcast. To your point, it's basically Verizon under the covers, right?
Right.
And the wireless, you need to understand too that this wireless service covers every cruiser, several fire trucks, and any employee who has a device that's been assigned to by the town. And there's quite a few of them there. And we renegotiated the rates and they've come down, but again, it's a government contract that we're required because of the police department, which is running off the same one.
Just as a quick follow-up item, do we have any of the data pucks or the hockey pucks that are still in existence on the plan now that people can pretty much just go ahead and use their phone as a hotspot? Seems a little bit redundant to have those.
So we don't have any hotspots.
Okay.
All these data services are dedicated services, like inside the cruiser, they're built into the computer or they're built into the cruiser itself. That's the enable it. Same thing with within the fire department. Any device they have is actually their hotspot too.
Okay.
So we don't have any hotspots per se.
Okay.
And there are quite a few people that are leveraging their phone as a hotspot for example, in the fire department, we use our onboard iPads as hotspot to allow us to do defibrillator transmissions and stuff like that. So.
On the ID printer replacement, I know you had mentioned this is a replacement of a printer that has failed this current year. So question being, what are you currently using this year?
So we're behind right now. The printer failed just before the pandemic. And we've not been able to replace it. Obviously budgets were frozen, so we deferred it. At this point, we're not replacing badges, which means we're in fault in some cases. So,
I mean, this is an item that I would look to use current budget year funds for, right? This is more of a need. And I understand that we had a budget freeze, and I'm talking to you, Mr. Brunel, yes, but I'm looking at Town Administrator Brown. Right. I mean, I don't know what the exact number is. I know the police, some monies from their budget was used to purchase 2 administrative vehicles, right? I estimated that before that was made that we had somewhere in the ballpark of 225, 250 in that range of money saved from the cost, the expenses and the reduction of expenses this year because of COVID. So taking the 65,000 out of that, you still have ballpark $160,000 in this current year's operating budget that you could use to make purchases like this. No?
Like I said, we're going through a process right now trying to identify items like that. We definitely can take a look at it.
What's the average lifespan on this kind of printer?
the last printer we had was about 5 years, and it was a lower quality, so we're hoping for a longer lifespan as well.
So can we get another lower quality one for less price?
No.
Okay.
I'll expand on it. The last one was a very poor quality. The output was very dull and not readable in some cases. That's another driver, but it was constantly breaking too, which was the other issue.
Well, I would expect every budget committee member to have a fancy ID once this is purchased. Any other questions for Mr. Brunel?
The 540 for the WebEx, the virtual meeting platform, is that for a year? Was that a new contract?
So that is a year contract for next year, yes.
How did you absorb it this year?
It's to continue the services we're doing this year, next year.
Okay. Final questions for Mr. Brunel? Carrie?
Hi, question.
Yep,
You mentioned contracts increased. I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around this consolidated rate because it's an $800 a month increase over what was budgeted last year. So to me, that's not all rate increase. Are we using more devices? Is there a way to streamline what we do have? I mean, that's a significant increase on a monthly basis.
Carrie, you were referencing Verizon?
I'm looking at last year's where it said consolidated voice fax, $23.75 a month.
Yep.
This year it says $3,200 a month. So I'm just looking at last year's budget file versus this year's budget file, and that's what, 50%, almost a third. That's a
So
huge
when we negotiated, we did last year's budget. We had just started to bring on the fire department with all their new services. So when the fire department was built, we had to bring in fiber and other services from Consolidated. At the time, we had said we were told based on our usage and how we do things, it should be about X, and that's what we budgeted. This year is a fully loaded year. We're seeing the actual run rate between long distance calls and the services we have and all that, and that is the month to month.
But we have the same number of employees, probably making the same number of phone calls. So I have a hard time just wrapping my mind around an increase that size.
So the difference is, if you think about it, at the fire department, let's use the fire department for example. In the old fire station, we had two copper phone lines. In this fire station, we brought in a fiber service, and we have multiple phone lines, which provide us backup to the town hall and the police department too. So basically, we took this opportunity to resolve. I think I remember going through this last year too. We took this opportunity to solve some of the other problems we had at the town hall. Every time it rained, we lost our phone service. Every time power went out, we lost our internet service. We took this opportunity with the municipality, being that we're now in a complex, we extended service between the building, and now we have redundant services in both locations. So if either place has a problem, they can fill over. That comes at a cost. We also moved away from all the analog lines to digital lines. That comes at a cost too. So as I said, the employees may be different, but we're using the services different. And I think if I remember last year too, I spoke about how our demands on our internet services have gone up because pretty much everything we do today is, for the most part, in the cloud on the internet. So every one of our town employees is using that. A lot of our backup services we back up to the cloud. We don't back it in-house because we want to get it off-site. So we do it over the cloud. So that's bandwidth that we're using to try to, protect our data and our resources.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Harrison, any questions? No? And I believe the contract for the IT manager is still in process? That hasn't been finalized? Okay.
We just met this evening and very hopeful that will be resolved after the Board of Selectmen's meeting on October the 19th.
Okay. Final questions? All right. Thank you, Mr. Brunel. Appreciate the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Mr. Brown.
What do we got left? Insurance?
We have mosquito, health, insurance, and general government facilities.
Well, let's do general government facilities.
4194.
We're all there?
Good.
Oh. I don't know how many times that's going to throw me off, but I just went to try to give you the bottom line summary, and I'm like, well, there's no way we can be up $152,000 over last year. But it's thrown me off 3 times already in presentation.
But you are.
We we are. And this is our equipment lease, a new line. So our bottom line, this will be the first year that we make payment on the communication tower lease purchase. So, so the bottom line for general government buildings is $256,589, represents $152,918 increase over last year, with $150,890 of that being the new payment for the lease purchase. So going up to the top, wages for the custodian. We have budgeted an extra 5 hours a week for the COVID related matters. And I just felt that if you look, in the other, like I didn't bother putting extra hours in the rec department or anything like that. I figured having the extra hours a week here, it will work its way out. I mean, we're basically deploying our custodian for making sure he gets into this building, and if needed, down there at Town Hall, depending on what happens, to get through and disinfect those high touch items at least once a day. And then the cleaning would remain the same as it always have been. So that's your driver there for the increase, representing $3,757. We had a $400 increase in our electric. And so still trying to get a good handle on electric and propane gas as we try to roll the old fire station into these 2 line items. But going back to electric, I also want to point out that when our communication towers go online, we will have two new accounts. So we'll have two meters, 2 service accounts. And so we've estimated that extra cost for those 2 services will be $1,200 a year. But looking at, the usage at Town Hall, the police station, and the old fire station, adding the 2 communication towers, we've been able to hold this overall increase to no more than $400, our best guess. Same thing with propane. The propane costs, for last year we still had some heating going on down at the fire station. This year, obviously, we'll be able to have for the full year. We'll have it turned down to, probably 55 degrees, whatever recommended amount is. Keep the building from freezing. We're not able to winterize the building because it's used as a bathroom facility for the cable TV folks. So they do go over there and they use that as their bathroom facility.
It's true. Okay.
No bathroom in the studio.
Oh, there's right. Yeah. There's no bathroom there. Well, you could go up to the Dara Pond. We got one there year round. So I don't know. Everything else is just really trying to capture what our anticipated cost is. You've got a decrease in there, repair and maintenance, a decrease of $770. That's driven by us really taking a look at that line and trying to calculate the cost, what we think it will be, instead of just level funding that item. Gasoline is down $3,250. So we're still estimating that our usage would be about 18,000 gallons. We've been carrying the cost of gasoline at $2.50 a gallon for the past couple of years. I've taken it down to $2.25 this year. So, and again, I know we see the price of the pump right now, but you just never know what can happen and cause spikes. So it's difficult to sit here today and not know what 2021 will bring for natural disasters and refineries and missile strikes and who knows what. So
The town, you don't pay the pump price as we see because there's
No.
the tax in there.
there's a tax in there. And, so we pay a couple of the mandatory EPA taxes, but no sales tax or
So there's probably about 20 cent per gallon savings because of the no tax.
Yeah, I wouldn't know exactly, but if you want to kind of summarize it that way, yeah.
I mean, if I take a look at the gasoline line and at $2.25 a gallon, if the prevailing rate right now is, let's say, $1.90, $1.91, and the savings because of no tax, I'd feel better if I saw that line at least $2 per gallon, which would bring that down to $36,000, which is a further reduction of $4,500 on an annual basis.
Mhm.
Is that a possibility?
It is. I mean, I'd rather really wait and see how our bottom line turns out because, again, when we have those unexpected events, this number can spike on us, and I've been through times when we've had things occur and we've had a good price per gallon, and next thing you know, you're paying above $3 a gallon. And we don't have a contingency in our budget. So it's we can look at it, I think, as we get further finalizing the budget and see where we're at. But it's something that
I think it's a fair point, right? I mean, at the end of the day, we have to present a budget that's under the tax cap,
Yeah.
right? And so we're going to have to make tough decisions somewhere.
Yeah.
I would just caution, I would agree with Mr. Brown on this one. I mean, certainly as COVID hit, we saw gas prices that some of us haven't seen since we were kids,
Yeah.
Dropping down to $1.50, $1.60. Just recently doing some commuting down to the Boston area, I was shocked at the fact that there was no traffic on Route 3. I think Mr. Brown is of sound judgment only taking it down to 225 because of the fact that, we talk about it all the time that, these artificial dips, I see this as being an artificial dip. I mean, it was consistently around 250 prior to COVID. I would just caution that would put him in quite a bind. And there's certainly other areas that are far more predictable. that we could probably find some savings in.
Well, I mean, my feeling is we're going to be in a COVID environment for quite some time. And I think if we look over the past 8 months to a year, I think the cost per gallon has been substantially down. And in creating the budget, I'd rather go with what is as opposed to what could be. I mean, the sky could fall. But right now, gasoline is down. Let's take advantage of it and express that in the budget.
Yeah,
All
I
fair
think
points, right?
it's
And-
worthy of knowing, it's worthy of future discussion, and myself, I'd prefer to see where we're at as we're trying to finalize this, and if, it is something that we could turn to, but I'd prefer to leave it alone at this point in
Hurricane in
time.
the Gulf Coast, right?
Right, and that's true. But,
Yeah, I mean that's where I think the unpredictability of this one. I tend, I think we've all been asking a lot of questions across the board as to where we can look to cut money. This is one I tend to think we would want to leave where it is, just because of the unpredictable nature of it. I think there are other opportunities for us to look at other places, and you're right. I mean, a hurricane here, a hurricane there, a natural disaster, and we could see this creep over 250 and really be in a pinch.
yeah, we've been through a number of hurricanes, and right now the gasoline price is pretty stable. In
Right.
view of the fact that we're not paying tax on gasoline and our real cost is down around $1.70, then $2.25 per gallon is overestimating the cost of fuel.
Well,
Something
year
to consider
ago-
when we do
year-
voting in a couple weeks.
yeah, a year ago when we put this budget, we had budgeted $2.50 a gallon, and I proposed that we put it at $2.25, which I think allows the ability to absorb that up and down that can occur. And if COVID ever leaves us, and things start to take off, then the demand for fuel is going to be there, and I'm sure we're going to start to see that price tick up. So.
Questions on WebEx? Ms. Douglas?
I don't have any questions. This is just an item I actually don't look at until for another couple of weeks, because I look at the futures that the US government tends to provide, and they come out soon. And they are a good basis, I think. And then, yes, factoring in what, how the tax impact is, because yes, 250 is not really 250. It's closer to 260, 270. And whether or not we're actually going to see gas prices that high, I don't know. But yes, and yes, I understand the whole COVID versus being past COVID, but I think there's also some things that may have changed that are going to be here for a while. People are not necessarily going to be driving into work all the time. I think that people will be leveraging this so that will have an impact on gas prices. It's hard to predict, but when we are in a tight budget, that might be somewhere to look.
I did link, if you put your mouse over the text that's underneath gasoline, that red font gasoline, and you click on that, it has an energy outlook. And I think they were right around what were they for gasoline for 2021?
223.
To gasoline, 223. Forecast.
Question on a different line.
Okay, Ms. Forty.
Under the custodial maintenance supplies, so I saw that there was an increase, it said the 2,500 for COVID supplies, but then was that just backed out by?
Yeah, so
Recently?
I was actually budgeting to add 2,500 onto our 3-year average of what we spend in that line. I have backed that out now and just carrying the 3-year average. And what we're going to do is we're going to stock up as much supplies as we can between now and December.
I appreciate the change in 750, the furniture, because there was initially a request for the 2,100 was I think additional chairs from watching the Board of Selectmen.
Yeah.
definitely could use them, but I think it's an example of one thing that maybe not this year.
You talked about pulling those out.
Yeah.
Last meeting or the meeting before, I think.
I mean, some of you noticed what we've done is because of, just preparing this room, we've taken we had a lot of different mixed match of chairs in here. So we've tried to go around the office and standardize the chairs the best we can. And but there's these other stackable chairs that we have, and they've been around forever. They're falling apart. The bottoms of them are like, it's not plywood, it's some type of high compressed cardboard. I mean, they're just, things are falling apart. But we'll continue to look for you can get some real good quality used chairs at surplus property stores, and banks and private sector businesses decide to upgrade or whatever, and almost brand new condition. So we'll keep our eye on that and do our best, upgrade.
So, Mr. Chairman, I have more of a comment, not necessarily a
Please.
question on this particular part. And this is really what motivated me to run for office, as well as then,
Chairs?
yes. No, not chairs. Very passionate about chairs. No, just the equipment lease and the additional propane for the fire department, things of that nature. And I think you've heard around town, there's many people that sit there and say, whether it's the budget committee or the board of selectmen, it's 500, it's 900. And these warrant articles just kind of get thrown on because it feels good, but nobody is actually planning ahead and figuring, okay, well, in this particular budget in 2021, how are we going to offset an additional cost of $150,000? And so far in this process, I haven't seen where that type of thinking. I'm hoping that as we get to the warrant articles for coming up next year, that those types of things are taken into consideration, so that way, people, we don't keep putting ourselves in a jam year after year after year because something gets voted
There was a
in.
lot of pushback on this committee about how this communication equipment was funded, right?
The mechanism.
The mechanism, we did not believe it was right to do it in arrears. We were very vocal about that because now we're in a bind, right? Regarding this $150,000 payment for this current year, right? Again, this would be an area that I think personally would be great if I saw the Board of Selectmen encumber from this current year's budget where I know they have excess, and let's make that first year payment and just get it out of here altogether, right? I mean, that pretty much covers the entire amount remaining in this current year's budget, and it's put to good use.
And I would agree that this year that's a fantastic option. The problem is you don't actually fix the behavior that keeps putting us in this situation. So I would like to see, in terms of in the future, if there is a warrant article, let's just say there's another, lease that's going to be coming up for $150,000. I would like to see somebody proactively saying, and by the way, these are the areas of the budget that we have identified that we can trim down to help offset that cost. Instead, it just seems like we just throw it over the wall and next year we'll figure out how to, include that in the taxes.
Well, I would encourage you to start thinking about that now because, we will likely see something for warrants in a couple months, right? Maybe one for a fire truck, right?
Yep.
Maybe $100,000 a payment. I don't know, right? But so where are we going to trim back the budget now to accommodate that?
And I would just encourage the Board of Selectmen and the school board that when you take a look at those types of warrant articles, come prepared with some sort of plan of how you expect to pay for it if it does pass.
I would disagree with the categorization of the communication towers as a feel-good warrant article. I mean, that wasn't just, this is a nice to have. I mean, there were multiple presentations of multiple points of failure that we needed to correct for the safety of the town. I totally hear your point that if we're taking on, a cost in one area, is there a way to offset certain places in other? But also, I do think we need to have the larger conversation about the town is growing, more people are moving into town, more people in town means sometimes, not always, but sometimes there is a need for other services, upgrade of services.
Expansion.
Sometimes expansion. just particularly with the communication tower, Mr. Brunel gave very detailed justification for it because it is quite the expense. But it's not without merit.
Yeah, I mean, I heard examples. I mean, to me, this boiled down to safety concerns from the different
Especially in
examples.
schools.
Yeah, the way I heard different scenarios explained to me, the justification was there. I agree with Mr. Taylor that this was something that was needed from a safety standpoint in our schools and across the town, but we have to find a way to look at other ways to save and offset that cost. And I think this first year's payment coming out of this year's budget makes a lot of sense.
I think we have to be careful too. We cannot lock in future boards to decisions today, really. We can make a decision for the upcoming year in the budget, but we can't say, if you approve this in 5 years, this is how you're funding it. We can have that discussion. We had a similar discussion when we did the fire station about offsetting some of the expenses by delaying some of the highway fund, but there's a recognition that we can't force them to continue to fund it that way. That's really what the voters need to have that discussion. I mean, at some point, we have to pay for things, but we have to find a way to be creative about it. But we're looking at next year's budget. We can't control what people decide to do a couple of years out. We can try to give our opinion, but we can't lock anybody in.
Okay. Any other questions on general government buildings? Okay, hearing none. Mosquito?
What's the number on that?
4411. Mr. Brown, you have your 2 minutes uninterrupted.
All right. So our contractor has agreed to honor the contract that he had last year and the previous year. So he's holding the cost at $31,850. General supplies is $100. This is used only when needed. And we haven't had, for the past couple of years, we haven't had to actually do a lot of public notices and advertising and printing out certain things and going around posting them at our different facilities. But that's what that line item is intended for.
So if there's West Nile or
Yeah, if you get yourself into a situation where we have West Nile, Triple E outbreaks, then in the past, and we have had it, you go around, you print out, you go purchase the outdoor notices and post them around all of our public and school facilities.
okay. Questions on mosquito district? Ms. Douglas? Good. Ms. Harrison? Good. Okay. Thank you. Want to do health agencies? 4415?
It's a little, we left this on the agenda just as really a precursor. I think you'll see that this will show up as a warrant article. Well, I know it'll show up as a warrant article. The Board of Selectmen have taken the approach in the previous years that now these funding requests are a special warrant article. So we're in the process right now of receiving the requests from various health agencies. I've populated the numbers that requesting for 2021. You see there's still some groups that we haven't received correspondence from yet. There was a warrant article that created a committee that takes a look at all these requests, and they formulate a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, and then the Board of Selectmen will take that recommendation and decide what level they'd like to recommend be funded. Last year, we had well over $25,000 worth of requests. I believe the article was approved for $15,000.
And just to be clear, looking at your summary tab, this doesn't have any impact. The 16,000
So-
that's in here currently does not have impact on tax cap at the moment.
No, because this will be a warrant article.
Yep.
But it always was in the operating budget, and
Last year was pulled out.
so we decided just to leave it there, but it's not part of that summary page. It's not connected to the bottom line. And if you're interested in knowing more about these groups, up there at the very top, 2021 requests, if you click on that, you'll have a PDF, and I just scroll through them, and you have all the groups that we've received letters from so far. It gives a little background on what they do. It gives you numbers on the citizens served in our town, and then, you know, the amount that they're requesting.
Thank you. Any questions here? All right, moving into insurance, 4196.
This will probably 4196. Other insurance. So we're still waiting on this one. This is one of those items that I believe October the 15th, we should have the rates set for our property liability. Also, we'll have the rates for our workers' compensation and our unemployment, which is in another section of this budget. Just to recap, see, the last time we met, we did receive our health insurance rates, and we've gone in and made adjustments. Health insurance increased 6.4%. Our dental plan had a 0% increase. I was actually pleased with that. I don't know how many years I've faced a double-digit health insurance increase. So the 6.4% I thought I was surprised. I was anticipating that it was going to be higher. And I was not expecting a flat, 0% increase for dental. But for this line here, this is just our liability insurance. And we just, like I said, October the 15th, we'll receive the new premium rate.
I was just going to say, on the insurance and the health insurance specifically, I know we've talked a little bit about that. And there's not a whole lot that the town can do, right? Because it's the cost of the insurance plans.
Yeah.
Can you shop for different plans? I mean, some of this is contractual. I mean, what protections or what recourse or what can we do as a town to control those costs? Because every year, as you know, it goes up and up and up.
Right. So just, for people to be aware, we basically use two insurance, I'll call them agencies of this, for lack of a better term. So we have the Health Trust, which is a group of towns, schools, county governments that we all pool all of our needs together. There's several different plans, and just by the sheer volume of the participation in that health trust pool, we're self-rated. So it's not some business that's providing health insurance to private sector throughout the country. It really is self-rated based on where our pool is. All the municipalities or schools or county governments that have 100 employees or less. So it kind of put all of us in that pool, and it works to help stabilize the costs, so that if we were self-rated just a town and we had one incident where we had, a cancer treatment or something, a real high expensive treatment, you would see our premium spike. So by participating in this pool, we have some protection in numbers. And we've also have negotiated in our union contracts that, we would use this provider. If we wanted to change the provider, we would have to sit down with the union and discuss that, making sure that there's a comparable plan that we'd be moving them to. About 3 years ago, we actually did that. And our rates were, I think, projected to be 18% increase. We were with a different pool, and we sat down with the union and we worked together, and we were able to go back to the health trust. And I think it's actually proven to be pretty stable for the last couple of years. with our property liability, workers' compensation, unemployment, that's all handled through what is referred to as Primex. And they specialize, again, just municipalities, schools, and county government in the state of New Hampshire. And they're not in the health insurance or dental business. They're just strictly property liability. They have, they work directly with the town. We have a joint loss safety committee that we're, they'll work with our safety committee, set different performance measures, and we report back annually on that to try to prevent slips and falls and losses and accidents. And based on that, we get a percentage, a discount. And I'm pleased to report that we're eligible for that discount again this year. So we have been for the previous 5 years, so.
Any questions on insurance? Mr. Taylor?
It's 40. No, please go ahead.
No, I just think it's the conversation about insurance, and I appreciate the information, Mr. Brown. I think it's important to have some context. Some of us know more about this than others, but I think it's a good example of one area of the budget where you do see increase year over year, and that makes it difficult to completely offset or to completely say we're going to zero-based budget. That definitely is an area of the budget where it goes up each year. And I know it's hard because, people I have heard on this board and in the community, well, I don't get a raise every year. How come I have to pay more every year? But that's not the system that we have in New Hampshire. It's property tax. It's not an income tax. So I think that's where where I can completely understand the frustration. But sometimes the budget increases because costs increase. We get that increase, and our wonderful municipal employees have gone through every step that they can to, reduce that increase, but it's still an increase. It's challenging.
Mr. Brown, as far as the 6.4% increase, is that completely handled by the town, or is that participants see an increase of X
So
percent?
we have currently right now we have an 80% town share, 20% employee share.
Okay. And as far as the contracts that we work out with the unions,
Same.
is there a point though that we can? I guess question one is how long are those typically, and question two, do we have any ability to be able to slow that particular rate and drop down to a different tier of coverage if, for example, somebody came to us, if the trust came back to us and said, you're going up 18% this year, you're going up 18% the next year. Again,
Yeah.
going back to what Chairman Cutter was talking
So-
about, just not having our hands tied by.
So there's many options. Again, if we could choose different coverages using the health trust, they have all types of different plans. And what happened about 3 years ago, that 18% rate increase, obviously the employees were going to pick up a share of that. And so very willing to come to the table and talk about, what can we do? At that point in time, we decided we had just gone through about 3 years of rate increases that were not really what I thought were the, standard in the market. And we looked at the health trust and looked what their rates were, and a lot more attracted. So the employees and the town were able to sit together and work this out. It was in the best interest of both.
Right.
And by having that 80-20% participation, it brings both parties to the table. We'll be sitting down with the union here shortly and talking about, another contract and the length of that contract and these types of discussions. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, I think that concludes our budget review for this evening. Next week, we have health, ambulance, fire hydrants, code, emergency management, police administration, police support, animal control, personnel administration, as well as the review of the preliminary revenue and default budgets.
Big night.
That's going to be a long night.
Yeah.
I would expect 3 hours next week.
Coffee.
Oh, I heard the sigh.
Where's the coffee budget? Where's that line item?
Just before shifting into member input, new business, right? I just want to make sure that we're all aligned for October 22nd and 29th when we proceed with voting. We've reviewed the budget over now. Well, we will have over a series of 3 meetings, but we're going to be voting in 2 meetings, right? Does the committee have any thoughts about how you'd like to vote? Or do you just want to take it from the top as presented down?
How have you done that historically?
It's really been page by page by page, right? So we'd go through every budget, typically as presented, and that's how we would start, right? If there are any questions needed from department heads, right, it's always helpful to ask. Hold on one second, Ms. Douglas. It's always helpful to ask those in advance so we can make sure when we vote we have the information at our fingertips for making an educated decision. Go ahead.
I liked going more of like department by department, because I might think a line should be reduced by $500 on one particular line, and you might think a different line should be reduced by $500. And rather than argue over 2 separate lines to get to the same number, we could say, hey, I'd like to make it a reduction of $500. But for me, it comes from my line, for you, it comes from your line, but ultimately the bottom line budget is the same number. So if you came through and say, advertising, would you say, I want to make a reduction of whatever, I could explain it, and then somebody could say, well, maybe not the lines I would have hit, but that's the number I was looking for. And then we could just move on, rather than nitpick each individual line item. That's my proposal.
Yeah, so you make bottom line cuts on town meeting, town clerk, on each of the budgets as presented, as opposed to going through each row. Is that correct?
Sorry, I muted myself, but
That's
yes,
all right.
that's the general idea.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I know typically in years past, I've provided a summary to the committee in advance of just kind of where my head's at. I don't know if that's helpful. If you'd like me to do that once again, if you just want to talk about it as
More info is always better than if you're willing to put in that work and
I am, but I'm always sensitive to, I don't want to
It's-
persuade others from having their
right.
own opinions.
True.
Right?
I use it.
I
I
use it.
do.
Use it as a tool.
Well, I form my own opinion, and then I look to see where am I going to have to debate you on, and then I can come with it. So, but at least I know whether or not we're in the same ballpark. If I know that you're not, say, because we're a whole group of people, but if I know that I have to, if we're way far apart, then it's be a much different conversation than if we're, within a stone's throw. But it's a good way to at least check to make sure, I'm not too crazy. Maybe a little crazy, but not too crazy.
All right.
I mean, I know last year you had presented by function. I think, was that just for the school?
That's the school.
Okay. I had found that helpful.
Yeah. I mean,
But
so
as
we
far
have our
as
working
town-
spreadsheet, which I've shared, right? I've taken that file. Thank you, Troy. Have a good night.
Have a good
Appreciate
night.
it. Good night, Karen. Thank you. I've taken that file and added started to formulate kind of my own ideas. And as we vet through these conversations and discussions, I'm adjusting kind of where I'm thinking. And I'm glad to share that with the committee if you find that helpful and truly informational. Again, I'm sensitive to the fact where I don't want to persuade anybody, right? That's not my intention at all. I want everyone to have their own opinions.
I'm similar to Carrie that I find it helpful to see, like, did you pick up on something that I missed, or am I seeing something differently? I think it helps me prepare too. If I know, like, we've got a bunch of the same stuff, then I'm like, all right, I don't have to talk as much. But I think, for the town, it makes sense to me what Carrie's saying about, each department, each budget that we're getting. And I would say, as far as breaking it up into the 2 meetings, I mean, I feel like the first night we just get through as much as we can and see what's left.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to gauge.
Some of these,
Some of them are very quick.
some of
There-
them
there
we're not
just
going to have any
isn't as much
recommendations.
to say.
I
Yeah.
can't, I'm going to make a guess, right? But I wouldn't expect we make any motions on mosquito district, right? I don't know, but I'm guessing. So, I mean, that will be a very quick one.
cross that off my list.
Well, right. I mean, some of these are much more, when we get to like fire and police, I mean, some of those are much more.
Right. I think my idea for fire and police is that I'd like to get through one of them on the 15th and probably
The other one.
the 22nd, and the other one, the 29th, because those are the two lengthy ones.
Mm.
But we'll see how it goes. All right. Well, it sounds like we have at least an idea and a plan. Thank you for that.
I
And
think it
then-
was very informative the way you did it last year with the spreadsheets. It was very good.
Well,
I would do it again if you
You
don't
can't see my
mind.
computer, but I have it in front of me ready to go. So
Okay.
And so next week is the third review. So that's still 6:30, but then
Yes.
for voting days, it's 7
yes,
with the hard stop at 9:30.
correct. So we're
Yeah, so
so we have 5 hours to get through it all.
I think that's doable.
I think it is too.
For the town, yeah.
If we do our work before, if we come, like Chairman Cutter said, if there are specific questions, to get those out beforehand, so then we can have the data or whatever information it is, that's super helpful. But yeah, if we all come in with like kind of our game plan,
Okay.
I think that's totally doable in 5 hours.
Yeah.
I don't know. It makes sense.
Okay. Well, that's settled. So we'll move into member input, new business. Anyone have anything?
So I know that we had taken the school section off of the agenda while we were discussing the town budget.
Yes.
However, we're still getting the reports and things like that. So I didn't know, as it is, we do have a little bit of time.
If you have a
If
comment,
there-
please.
Well, I know we own, I think it was just earlier today, so I don't even know if people had a chance to see the email. Was the enrollment projections and then the business administrator's report from Mr. Zbicki.
Yeah. So, Ms. Harrison, I think one of the things that a couple of committee members noticed today after receiving the school enrollment projections that were shared is the calculations on some of the rows and columns weren't adding up. I actually converted it all to in a file and did the math separately. And yeah, you definitely have some formula errors in that.
Okay.
I can share it with you.
I know that Mrs. Hirschberger had also asked for the original sheet so we could see what the formulas were and what we were looking at. I'll forward that message and see if we can get any further. Michelle, do you remember any other discussion about why those numbers weren't adding up last night?
You might be on mute.
Okay, so the enrollment projections were done in-house it's not using a weighted average. You have to remember that, okay? This is just using a straightforward 3-year average. Okay, so we went over these numbers quite a few times. The actual October 1st numbers are the numbers used in the projections for the next 3 years, not the projection number. Okay, the projection number for 2021 is just showing you what we had projected. The actual number is what we used in the 3-year projections going forward.
Okay.
Right.
And
I think the
those
challenge here
numbers
is.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Andrew.
I was just saying, I don't think we're disputing any of that. I think that the challenge is the math wasn't working out in the table. Right?
Oh, and plus I should mention also that in years past, we did not include kindergarten in that total K through 4. Only this year, only in year 18, 19, we started including that in the total.
What I'll do is I'll share this file with you. Again, it's kind of hot off the press. We just did it I just did it late this afternoon. But I think the big thing is that you're looking at that. The actual that you have for the current year, I believe, was 1290. And when I add up all the numbers, we are actually at 1225, right? And so it's not a difference of 10. It's actually a difference of 75 less students this year, if I'm looking at the numbers correctly.
Well, the numbers in the 2021 projection don't add up either.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Was that information distributed?
It was earlier today, late afternoon.
All right,
Everyone else got it, right?
I will
You guys got it.
forward that question to Corey and Mike and see if we can get an updated spreadsheet.
Okay.
Sorry.
Nope, that's quite all right. Anything else to add? No? Ms. Douglas, anything from your side?
Not yet. I will have a question. I do have a question about the budget report, but I don't know if now is the time to address it or.
Now is the time.
Well, I noticed that the GMS staffing salaries are 445,000 is projected for an overspend. So I was curious as to what's driving that and where that money is being offset.
The salaries lines,
Yes.
that was, I talked to Corey about it. There was a manual entry mistake an error that happens, putting a limit on the contract, on all the salaries lines. So it appears as if it was overdrawn on those accounts or overspent on those accounts. But he said he had corrected that error. Again, I'll bring that back up to Corey and make sure that he get the updated numbers.
Okay, it was on last month, on this month, so it was kind of, especially when I keep hearing about all the problems that we're having. We clearly have a lot of extra staff because we're overspending. So
Yeah.
good to have a idea of what's going on there.
Yep, I will forward those two right now. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else school-wise?
On the town side.
Town side?
Mentioned it, we started going through the warrant articles, and we recommended withdrawing 6 of them
Okay.
due to budget constraints mostly, but really because there's a lot of things that we felt we really didn't need at this point. And I don't know, did you guys get the warrant articles?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, yeah, we had, I don't know, I think it was 15 or 16 of them in total. We pulled out 6 of them. Some pretty big ticket items too. So I guess if anyone had any questions on them, we could refer that to Troy, but or Steve. But
Typically, warrants are reviewed in December once
okay.
we have a better picture.
Okay, we're still working on them, but
Yeah, they're very draft right now. Okay.
My only comment to that would be to thank the Board of Selectmen for taking a look at those and factoring in the impact that we'll be looking at. So thank you for taking a deeper look at that.
you're welcome.
All right. Anything else to add before we move into closing? All right. We'll shift gears into public input. I'll let Mr. Brown confirm there's nobody there.
I concur.
Thank you, sir. And then that concludes tonight. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So made.
I have a motion by Mr. Hayes.
Mr. Hayes, yes.
Second.
Second by Ms. Fording.
Yep.
We'll do a roll call. Mr. Leary,
Aye.
Mr. Taylor,
Aye.
Mr. Sun,
Aye.
Mr. Hayes.
Aye.
I'm an aye. Ms. Fording,
Aye.
Ms. Douglas,
Aye.
and Ms. Harrison.
Hi.
All right. Motion passes 8-0. We are adjourned. See you next week at 6:30. Thank you very much. Have a good night.